Hey folks, welcome back to the Portable Gamer, welcome back to Train Sim World, and welcome back to the Trans-Pennine, the Northern Trans-Pennine DLC. We are in Leeds, and we're going to do a service into Manchester, Victoria. Is that right? Yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. So I'm trying to do a bunch of things at once here, and I think we'll have a minute before we have to lock the doors. Yep, we've got literally 1 minute till we have to lock the doors. So we're doing a service today. There we go. Doing a service today instead of a scenario. I like the scenarios, but I feel like there's typically about a half dozen of them. And I feel like you can't always do what you want to do in the loco that you want to do it in. You sort of, you know what I mean? Like you do what they got. And I don't think there are any scenarios for the Class 4-7. No, I take that back. There is one, but it's just some yard work. So I thought, let's do a little bit of a service. I don't know how long this is going to take. I think this may be the full length of the route, which is like 40 miles. 40 miles? Yeah, I think it's like 40 miles. And with stops, and we won't always be... There we go. And we won't always be going top speed. So I feel like brakes come down. There we go. Throttle comes up. Here we go. Because we're not always at top speed, and because there are stops, 40 miles, that could take an hour and a half. So I'm not going to go an hour and a half. I think I'll go about, let's say between 30 and 45 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll get to a station stop right about that time, and we'll just call it there. So that's what's going on. So today is Tuesday for me, Wednesday for you. This is our regular Train Sim World Wednesday. And I don't know. I said there'll be some changes to the channel after the first of the year, and I know, or at least I think I know, starting to figure out sort of what works and what doesn't. And I'm also trying to be mindful of the numbers, that just because a video doesn't have as many views as I would like it to have, that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't work. It just might mean that not a lot of people have seen my channel yet. So I'm trying to keep everything relative, you know what I mean? Because I'm very small at the moment, very small. So I look at some of my view numbers and I'm like, oh, that a dozen views, nobody liked that. And I think, well, if not that many people saw it, maybe a dozen is just right. So I'm sorting it out. But I do like the idea of doing trains at least once a week. And I'm going to, this is a little bit risky, but I'm very quickly going to duck away here. Because, yeah, I forget to do this sometimes. Forget to check my switches. I think we're okay. So we're going to back that off just a little bit. And I think we may need a touch of brakes before we get out of the yard. So I definitely want to continue doing ETS and ATS. I'm switching back from Farm Sim 19 to Farm Sim 17. Going to keep that going. I would love to have more racing videos on the channel, but at the moment I do not have my wheel with me. And I guess the good race sims that I have sort of need a wheel. I got into race room racing experience after my wheel was put back in storage, before I went back on the road. So I have that configured for gamepad. I've only ever been in race room on gamepad, and as a result I don't know, okay at it on gamepad. But I feel like I don't even think you can do iRacing on a gamepad. I think that's wheel only. It ought to be. That would be disrespectful to all the people that are on that platform, like serious sim racers, and they're on a wheel and you're going to try to race alongside them on a gamepad. That would not be cool. So you see what I mean? I couldn't do iRacing, and Assetto Corsa and a couple others, those are all configured for wheel, and I wouldn't want to go back to gamepad. But race room racing experience, I am on the gamepad, so maybe I could do some of those. I don't know. I you know, I just want it to be good, man. I just want to do good vids. So I'd like to have more racing vids on the channel. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, trucks, trains, tractors, race cars, motorbikes. Maybe do Ride 3. I don't know. Ride 3 is odd kind of content. And I continue to be sort of struck by the, not reality, that's too strong a word for it, but I continue to be struck by the fact that I think the quality of the content, no matter who you are as a YouTuber, I think the quality of the content, for the most part, there are exceptions, but for the most part, the quality of the content is what really is going to kind of resonate with people. But I also realized that there's a lot of people doing exactly the same thing. I mean, that's why I started doing it, because I saw other people doing it. And I wondered, honestly, can I do that? Could I make a video that looks like that? And that's what I've been trying to do. So when you think of all the people that are on the platform making Train Sim World videos, or Truck Sim, or Farm Sim, or whichever it is, when you think of all those people on the platform, I feel like, you know, what makes a viewer pick one channel over another, pick one YouTuber over another, and I really feel that it comes down to the personality and the presentation and the gameplay of that YouTuber in particular. So I'm also reminding myself, within limits, it's not, you know, doesn't fix everything, but within limits, I'm reminding myself that, this is weird to even say this out loud, but I'm reminding myself that the reason that someone might watch me drive a train or a truck or farm has less to do with the sim itself as it does with how I play it and my presentation and what I talk about while we're playing and various other things. So that's kind of a heavy thing to process. It's intimidating, it's flattering, right? But I do, yeah, I literally remind myself that the quality always has to be there for me. But then another part of me is like, just play the games you like. And if people are into you, they'll get with you while you play them. And you can have a moment. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But yeah, definitely after the first of the year, I need to redo my opening graphics, and I definitely need to redo my ending title card, because that's a little bit out of date. I say this all the time. I still have F1 2017 up there. I haven't even swapped it over to F1 2018, which we started, but then I had to put on hold when my wheel went away. So that is what's going on there. What else is going on? What's new in Gaming World? I am switching back to FS17. Did a video about that. It's, yeah. It's been an experience. It's not the worst thing. It's not the end of the world, but it's been an experience. And this will be the first time, at least that I can remember, and certainly for the channel, the first time that I have moved forward to a game, right? Because I always got to have the latest and greatest. It's the first time I've ever moved forward to a game and then moved back to the previous one, to the predecessor. Never done that before, and it's not, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just a new thing for me, and I think I like the timing, because this whole Farm Sim 19 deal happened right about exactly the same time as Fallout 76, and that was, I don't know, it's interesting hearing where people are coming out on the Fallout 76 thing. I know I've heard some people defend it and say, oh, come on, you know, nobody's perfect. They'll get it sorted out. It'll be fine. And I've heard other people say, you know, how disappointing that a big company like Bethesda screwed that up. And then I've heard other people say Bethesda didn't screw up anything. They made a cash grab, and it was, for the most part, successful. Okay, that's a little harsh, but, you know, who's to say? Who's to say? So I think that any company, regardless of size, can have, you know, there's a moral hazard. There's definitely a moral hazard. Oh, there's a ton of moral hazards in life, but there's a moral hazard when you need money and you know how to get it and you can do it legally. Maybe not morally, but you can do it legally. And And that's for an individual, and it complicates things even further when you are a company like Bethesda. I don't know if Bethesda is publicly traded or not. I don't know if they have a stock, but at the very least, they have a lot of people working for them. And the holidays are here, and yeah, I've worked in business. I've done consulting work. I've worked for companies that are struggling to make payroll, and I know some CEOs, they could give a shit, man. They don't care about their employees. And I know other CEOs that I've worked with that it keeps them up at night and makes them want to drink to know that someone's ability to pay their mortgage or buy food for their kids or pay tuition at a private school comes down to that CEO and how they run their business. And it really, really weighs on them. So who knows? I don't know the inner workings of Bethesda. It could have been just a cynical cash grab. It could have been that they needed some revenue, and they couldn't push that game back 90 days. And the same thing may apply to Giants. Who knows? But the bottom line is, I said park, man. Park. There we go. For one of the first times, maybe the first time ever, I moved forward to a new sim and then moved back to the previous one. So that is interesting. At least I don't have to swap that out on my end card. I'm trying to think what else. Yep. I tried a couple new sims last week. I tried a sim called Railway Empire, and it was super cool. It's not for me, but it was a really cool. It's not a sim. It's a top-down city building game. Very, very cool. And there were two problems that I had with it. One is, I guess this isn't a problem. It's just a factor. One factor was I have too many sims going at once now to add another game to the roster. And the other thing was I'm on a 15-inch laptop monitor right now. I'm on a small gaming laptop. And it's a city building game. And what I've noticed about city building games is you kind of have to be zoomed out, right, to get an idea of what's going on. You can zoom in to build something, but for the most part, you want to zoom out, maybe not a lot, but at least a little bit. And when you zoom out on a small screen, things get too small to see. And when you zoom in, at least on my monitor, when you zoom in, now you can see a small area clearly, but you really have no idea as far as what's sort of off your peripherals. And so when you're building things, particularly between cities, like if you're building a long stretch of road, it's like you don't know where to make it go next because you can't see where your town is, right? Where your next town that you're going to is. Does that make sense? I think it does. So it's a very cool game, and it really got me thinking about something that I'm wondering about this. This is a genuine conundrum, perhaps. A curiosity. Hang on, got to do a little breaking. So when I was a kid, when I was a lad, we had a model train set up in our basement, a model railroad. It was relatively small. Our house wasn't huge when I was growing up, but it was a pretty big model railroad. And my dad built it and worked on it. My dad was very much into model railroading, and I feel like that was more of his generation. I think the heyday of model railroading was, I don't know, from probably the 1920s to the 1950s. My dad's not that old. But I feel like that's the... Moment, please. I got to concentrate on several things at once here. I think we're going to be okay, though. Okay, so we got that there. We got that there. Okay. So that was more his generation than mine. And I also grew up in Pittsburgh, which is the home of the Carnegie Science Center Model Railroad, which is legendary and beautiful. And everybody in Pittsburgh, I think, literally every single person in Pittsburgh goes to see that over the winter holidays. Beautiful. But it got me thinking when I was looking at Railway Empire, when I was looking at that top-down game, it got me thinking about model railroading. And it got me thinking about, when that became a thing. And I want to say it's about the 1920s because it required electricity. I mean, I guess they had model railroads before, but you couldn't, they didn't really move around by themselves. You had to kind of manually, have it on a string or something, tow it around. But I think it was when electricity became available and safe and affordable that somebody thought, hey, you know what? I bet I could put a little electric motor in a toy train and, it would drive around. So that's cool. And when I think about model railroads, I think, what are we really after here? Is it the trains, or is it that top-down view of a miniature world? What's our goal here? Oh, snap, we're on time. No way. We are actually on time for once. Unbelievable. So you see what I'm saying? Is it the trains themselves? And I think for some people it is. Or is it the top-down view of a tiny world that you created? Right? And I think for some people it's that. For some people it's probably both. But, right? So when I think about a miniature world, I mean, you can make a miniature world. You've been able to do that for hundreds of years. You just build a model, right? Time it. Man, it keeps turning that. Okay, we're a little bit light on the platform. Let me see if we got everything on. No, but is that a passenger car? Is it? Can't tell if it is or not. Well, definitely that door didn't make it. But I think even if we were further up, this last coach would not be on there. Okay. So you could build a miniature model, right? Anytime. That we weren't waiting on electricity to do that. Wait until 13. Okay, 30. Oh, I hit the button too soon. Okay. So we have to wait to leave, but the doors are closed. Right. So brakes off. All right. Throttle up. Here we go. But when electricity came along, now you could have things moving around in your little miniature world. And I think ideally, what you would want to see moving around is everything, right? You'd want to see a whole miniature world. You'd want to see cars moving around, or carriages with horses, or people walking around. But I think the limitations of movement required that it had to be something that moved in a specific pattern. And that means trains. Like, trains lend themselves to that because they're on a track. Does that make sense? Like, you can have cars in your little miniature world. What are they going to drive on? You could have slot cars maybe, and I've seen some German model railroads that have trams, right, that move in a little slot, like a slot car track, pick up power from two metal strips hidden in the road surface. Well, you see what I'm getting at. It's like trains, the genre or the goal of having a little miniature world with things moving, trains just worked for that because they move on tracks and they can go in a loop. But going back to the original sort of curiosity, was it a miniature world we were after, or was it trains themselves? So looking at Railway Empire, it just like stops me in my tracks, because I look at it and I think, damn, this is a virtual model railroad that you can keep in your laptop. You can store it in the cloud if you want. If you had a fast enough connection, you could probably play it off the cloud. You could play it on a tablet or whatever. So this is a model railroad that you take with you, if that makes sense. And that really fascinated me, but then it got me thinking about train sim, and it's the same question, right? Is it the trains that we're after? A moment, please. Is it the trains that we're after? or is it the miniature world? So I don't know. I don't have an answer at the moment. But I know I do love trains. Oh. Okay, so we got that. I'm going to slow down just a little bit more. All right, so that. Okay, we're good. Now we're back up to 80. Okay. So yeah, and I wonder, my dad's gone, but I wonder how he would feel about either one of those, about something like Railway Empire, which I have to say, I think that game would play amazingly on like a 35-inch monitor. I think that would be great. So, I don't know, but it's an amazing time to be, I don't want to say in gaming, but yeah, I guess that fits. For me, it's really an amazing time to be in sim gaming, because we've just got so many options, and I feel like it really is becoming, you can fool people. If you know people that aren't into gaming, and even some people that are into gaming, I've seen, I'll have iRacing coverage on GSRC or RaceSpot or something, and I'll have it on a tablet while I'm making dinner, and a friend or somebody will look and say, oh, what race is this? What race is on Tuesday night? And you let them watch for a while. Oh, that's GT3 from Lime Rock Park. Oh, okay. And they watch for a minute, and then you tell them, that's a video game, and they throw their readers on. Wait a minute, video game? What are you talking about? So I think visually it's getting good enough. I think the gameplay is getting comprehensive enough. Maybe, is that the right word? Involved, immersive enough that we can even fool ourselves sometimes. Not into thinking that this is reality, but maybe getting to a point where there is nothing in the sim that is actively like pulling us out of it, if that makes sense. Right? Like you don't want to go full sex robot and actually like forget where you are. That's no good. But I think go. Time it just right. Oh, I think we got it. Beautiful. So yeah, I mean, you don't want to like live in a fantasy world or forget that, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about fully stepping into the Matrix. But I do think sim gaming is at a point now where you can really kind of lose yourself in it. And that's, if you're a sim gamer, that's a good thing. And I, for the longest time I've been a little bit defensive about gaming. I think because it's something a lot of people don't get. I think a lot of people, well, the current generation, millennials, they definitely get it. They know what gaming's all about. And I'm right in between. I'm right in between old people and young people. So I think people in my generation could go either way, because people in my generation, we grew up on video games, but then a lot of people left them behind when they went to college. Whereas today's generation, millennials, gaming is a big part of their life. And what I think about is TV and Netflix, and that you can come home, if you come home from work and flip your TV on and it's on for 5 hours till you fall asleep on the couch, or Netflix, whatever, that's just the thing. Everybody does that. But to do the same thing with a video game, right? Like you can watch TV for 3 hours, you can binge Netflix for 3 hours. So what? Everybody does that. But if you play a video game for 3 hours, again, this is my generation. I think millennials and the generation after mine, they wouldn't bat an eye. But for my generation, there are still people, colleagues and peers, people in my age group, that when you talk about gaming, they're like, what? Like Sonic? Like Mario Kart? No, man. And yet Netflix gets a pass. And I'm not mad about that. I just find it interesting that sitting on your couch watching TV is okay. Sitting on your couch playing TV, well, that's weird. But it's strictly perception. It's strictly just the way people feel about it. But it does make me a little bit defensive. So I think as we continue to like bridge up into virtual reality in all phases of life, not just in gaming, but I joke about the sex robots, but they will be here. Give it another 5 or 10 years, and we've already got, I guess, virtual dating, text message affair, that you can interact with somebody you've never met. Don't send them nudes, because you're not exactly sure. You know what I'm saying? It might not be who you think they are. But if it's strictly just, talking to somebody or texting somebody, you can do that now. And again, it's one of those things where, like, back in the day, if you had a correspondence, or if you had a pen pal, that was a cool thing. I have a pen pal in who knows where, overseas or something. Oh, that's awesome. But now if you meet somebody online and you correspond with them, it's like, oh man, that's creepy. You don't even know who they were. You don't even know who they are. And I think, well, like back in the day, 50 years ago, if you had a pen pal, you don't know who your pen pal is. It could be anybody, So everything is just how you feel about it. And so we're already moving to a place where, I don't want to say we don't need people, but we need people differently than we used to. And I feel like when we get to the sex robots, we're not going to need people at all. You got a home office, you got a home gym, you got a home theater, you got a little robot to cook your meals, to talk to you, hand you the paper in the morning, and and now you got a sex robot to cuddle with. And I feel like at that point we really won't need each other at all. And I don't know where I'm at with that. On the one hand, I think that's sad. It's a sad statement on who we are as a species, and it is a sad commentary on the distance we've allowed to grow between us. Oh, gonna be close. Okay. Speeding a little bit, not too bad. But at the same time, I think, well, so what, man? So what? You do you. I don't know. You do you. And if you're not a people person and you can find things to bring into your world to give you a quality of life and make you happy, then of course you should do that. Why wouldn't you? What are you saying? That somebody should be miserable and alone because they're not a people person, and here's technology that allows you to communicate, and here's a sex robot, and that person should say, no, I'm not gonna. I don't want that. I'd rather be sad and lonely. That's ridiculous. You do you. So, where the hell was I going with that? There was a point, I think, about 5 miles back. I had a point. I can't remember. Anyway. Yeah. Completely forgot. I completely spaced it. Railway Empire is a great game. You should check it out. I think that's where I was going with that. And then the other one that I tried was Hunter, Call of the Wild. I'm going to try to hit this red light a little bit better. Beautiful. The other one that I tried was Hunter, Call of the Wild. And that's an interesting sim as well. Game, sim, I don't know. I said this in a video the other day. All video games are simulation games. That just sort of dawned on me, like it popped into my head. Probably while I was in the shower. But yeah, they really are. And I guess the terms are interchangeable now. We don't need to say sim gaming because they're all sims. Got the break, and we're at 30 minutes, so 25 minutes to our next stop. I may I may cut it off between here and there. Let's go. I don't know. Let's go another 5 minutes. I'll tell you about Hunter Call of the Wild, and then we'll just wrap it up while we're in motion. So, Hunter Call of the Wild. It's a cool game. It's a cool sim, but for me, it didn't have legs, and it was not something that I would. I mean, I've uninstalled it. I won't play it anymore. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very cool, but I think hunting, and I grew up in Pennsylvania, so of course I've hunted in real life. I just don't think there's any way you could ever make hunting into a video game. And the reason why is it's too much doing nothing. Like all sims, all games have to have a little bit of artistic license. You know what I mean? There's got to be a bit of you got to fudge things a little bit, right? Like in Farm Sim famously has time compression because farming is a whole lot of playing golf, at least in the United States. It's very busy in the spring, and then during the summer you just fish and play golf, and then it gets busy again in the fall. And I've had real farmers tell me that. So hunting is the same way. There was a lot of I wouldn't quite say it was manic, but it was sort of non-stop. Like there was always something going on. I've never seen 4 bears in one day. Not in California, up in the Sierra Nevada, not in Pennsylvania. Big old fat, happy Pennsylvania black bear. Not in Montana. I've never seen 4 bears in a day. You know what I mean? Maybe in Alaska if you were like studying bears, but it has to be that way because a video game where you sit in a tree stand all day and then go home, like, oh, that's fun. Can't wait to try that. So yeah, I think that by necessity there has to be a little bit of, you know what I mean? It's gotta fudge the details to make it fun, and that's cool. That's cool, but it didn't work for me. And I also think that hunting is such an emotional and tactile and sort of sensory experience. I don't know that there's any way to capture all the detail, like, you know, surround sound and you know, a lot of the things that you hear is the animals making calls, you know, grunting and howling and whistling and doing the things that deer and elk do and bears do. But it's still, you know what I mean? You can't smell anything, and you can't feel anything. You know, you can't feel the wind. You can't, you know, pick up scat and crush it between your fingers, and so it's really just, you're really just listening, and then the game gives you a lot of visual cues that I think it has to, because if not, you would just wander around the woods, which, to be fair, hunting is a lot of just wandering around the woods. So it's a cool game, it's a cool sim, but it didn't do it for me. So those were the 2 that I tried this week, last week. What day is today? Tuesday? Man, the days are just all kind of jumbling together as we close in on the last 2 big holidays of the year. So yeah, man, I really wish I could remember, start again. I really wish I could remember what I was talking about a minute ago, because I feel like I had a point to make. Now, okay, I'm going to try to pick it up again. I think what I was getting at is that as video games become more and more realistic, and as we, for lack of a better term, as we need each other less and less as human beings, I really feel like we're going to move to the place that Second World was trying to get people to. What has that been, like 15 years, 20 years since Second World? Second Life, not Second World, Second Life. I really feel like the place that Second Life was trying to get us to, we'll get there sort of on our own, you know, and I don't know how much of that, you know, years down the road we'll be able to look back and say Second Life, you put this in motion or cause this or whatever. I was in Second Life for about 8 minutes, and I wanted to scratch my own eyeballs out with a pencil. Holy smokes, that was not ready yet. You know, it was groundbreaking in its own way, and it moved the genre forward, and people learned from it. It inspired people, whatever. You know, shoulders of giants kind of thing. But good Lord, it was either well ahead of its time or it just sucked. But yeah, I made it about 5 minutes, and I didn't even get griefed. I just thought it was ridiculous. You know, this is not nearly compelling enough to hold my attention. Whereas gaming today, it certainly is compelling enough to hold my attention, and I believe in time it will be more so. I know in time it will be more so, but particularly something like a racing sim. That is, you know, I can completely lose myself when I'm in iRacing, racing online against real people that I know are real people. I never actually, like, suspend my disbelief far enough to think that I'm actually in a car, but it's the next best thing. It really is. And I guess that goes back to what I was saying earlier, you know, when olds, and, you know, there's real olds. There's like actual olds with, you know, white hair and get off my lawn, like truly old people. But you may have noticed this. It doesn't matter how old you are. There are always people your age in your peer group that are old. They could be in their 20s and they're old. They're like an old person trapped in a millennial body. And to hear people talk about smartphones and tablets and technology and connectivity, to hear them talk about that the way they do, I think the thing that I find the funniest about that is what they're saying is that if you had gone back in time 50 years, or if you could go back in time 50 years and offer somebody in 1970 a smartphone and tell them, yeah, it's a phone, and you can have like crystal clear communication with virtually anybody on the planet. It's also got an encyclopedia in it that you can search with keyword. You don't have to like guess what encyclopedia. I don't know how many of you remember encyclopedia, but it was like 60 books you'd have in your house that they'd send you a new one every year with like corrections and updates in it. Not the whole 60. They'd send you like a single book for the previous year to add some things. But that was supposed to be like all the knowledge in the world, man. Your dang old Encyclopedia Britannica. That was a big deal, man. When you went in somebody's house, when I was a kid, you go in their house and they had the Encyclopedia Britannica. It was like, oh yeah, these folks are legit, yo. So we're back in time. We're back in 1970. You say, okay, this also has an encyclopedia. The biggest encyclopedia ever is on there, right? It breaks. And what else is in there? It's a map of the entire planet with a little dot showing where you are. And you can type in any place in the world, and it'll give you directions to get there. Any way you want. Walking, driving, right? Take a bus, take a train. It'll like lay it all out for you. It'll tell you what station to go to, what train to take. It's all in there. Oh, and by the way, there's a camera in there as well. There's a still camera, takes beautiful pictures. There's a video camera, shoot high definition video, right? That's in there if you want it. And and also all your headlines, all the news of the world from any source that you want. That's all in there, right? And also all the pornography that has ever existed in the history of humanity is in this smartphone, is in this little device right here. And somebody in the 1970s would say, no, I'm okay. I don't need that, right? So the idea that you know, millennials are in a restaurant pecking on their smartphone and people get so upset about that, and what do you care? What do you care what other people are doing in a restaurant? What's wrong with you? Leave people alone. They didn't ask you your opinion. So I'm going to turn my wiper off here. Oh, that's what park is for. So let me go a little more. Now, okay, so then now when we stop it, okay, that's how we do it. And we got to bump our speed back up. Here we go. So yeah, I think it's easy to get down on things like, well, basically anything that came after the prime years of your life. That's the marker. I don't know if you know this. I'll tell you a secret right now. Tell you a little wisdom. When you meet somebody who's trapped in the past, when you meet somebody who's like not into finding new music or not into finding new stuff to watch on Netflix or trying new restaurants or going to new countries or whatever, they're just not into new stuff. They go every year for vacation, they go to the same place, they go to the same restaurant, they eat the same meal. Not like one single restaurant, but they have, several that they go to. They don't want to try anything new. Old music from high school, music from college, whatever. Here's a trick. It's sort of a cruel trick, but it's valid. If you can isolate the era that those things are from, very often you can pinpoint the high point of that person's life, right? If they listen to the music that they listened to in high school, and they tell you that all music since then sucks, really? All of it? Huh. We headed downhill again? We are not. Then high school was probably the high point of that person's life, at least in terms of like joy and happiness and satisfaction. And it's just been all downhill since then. It's like an alumni license plate bracket. If you see somebody in their 40s with an alumni license plate bracket, they haven't done a lot since college. Anybody who's like way too involved with their college, and I'm not talking about like, become a state senator and you go to every home football game or something. That's a little bit different. That's like a person who's doing something with their life. I'm talking about somebody who's like way too into something that happened 20 or 25 years ago. The reason they're into it is because that was kind of like, that was it, man. That was their high point. So people can be the same way with technology. And there's a hard cutoff. And the hard cutoff is this. The last technology that you understood, that made sense to you and that you were comfortable with, that you could really like take custody of, for a lot of people, that's the last technology that was good. Got it? Yeah, we got it. Beautiful. Turn our wipers back on. So, and where I see that for my generation, that's the flip phone, right? Like people had a flip phone, and that made perfect sense. And now there's smartphones, and to see people of my generation like, oh, what do you need a smartphone for? Everything. I don't know, man. What do you need a car for? What do you need clean food for? Like, what? You just need stuff. You need stuff, and you can get by without it. You can live on candy bars and Mountain Dew if you want. It's really not good for you, but you can do it. So you can do a lot of things that you shouldn't do. So yeah, if a flip phone works for you, man, you get down with your flip phone. Good for you. But to look at a smartphone and say, why would anybody need that? I think, what are you, like 100 years old? Where's this coming from? And where it's coming from is the flip phone was the last technology that person could really get a grip on, And I see people in their 70s that are like all tech. They just kill it. And I see people in their 20s that, why can't I go back to the good old days? And the good old days, that's what I mean. Everybody's got a specific cutoff for what the good old days are. And for a lot of people, the good old days are the last time that they felt like they were really on their game. And everything after that has just been silly. And everything before that was, those were the bad old days. So, for a lot of people, that's like senior year of high school and college. And I get that. Because it's, those sort of are the golden days. But would you really want to be in college for the rest of your life? And I'm not talking about like the process of being in college, going to class and finals and that sort of stuff. But would you really want to just party and hook up, you know, go to Texas or Florida for spring break? Would you really want to do that for the rest of your life? And I think the answer is, well, as an adult, no, but I'd want to stay 20 forever or 21 forever. And at that point, it's like, well, you're just being ridiculous. You know, maybe in another 300 or 400 years, that technology will exist. But as of today, right now, no, man. You grow up, and then you grow old, and then you die. And that's just a biological reality. If you can't deal with that, you have the mind and the perception of a child. Anybody who's afraid of an inevitable biological process they've got a, I don't want to say they got a screw loose, but they're not seeing life with their eyes open. Death is an inevitable part of life, and death is what makes life so special. Sorry, I'm not looking to go like super serious on you here, but you know, the reason Disneyland is awesome is because you know you have to leave. If you had to live at Disneyland, if your job was to like get up and do Disneyland stuff every day, I think that would get old. And for me, probably about a week, maybe less. You know, you gonna let me go across the highway to California Adventure? No, I gotta stay right here in the Magic Kingdom. You gotta be kidding me. Because there's a lot of things about Disneyland that are not cool, but because you're only there one day, it's like, this is fine. You know, the food is either not good. There's cheap food in the park, but it's really not good. There's good food in the park, but it is incredibly expensive, and there's always a line. That's not too cool. You know, the rides are fun, but you really want to get on Space Mountain every day. You know, Matterhorn's cool. I like that one. So you see what I'm saying? It's the fact that we have to leave that makes it so awesome, and that they even tie it off for us. They give us a little ceremony. They give us the parade, and then Tinkerbell comes flying over. Yeah, I used to live in South Bay, Los Angeles, and I can't even count how many times I've been to Disneyland. It was like 30 minutes from my house. That was my local theme park. Honestly, I preferred Six Flags out in the desert, but I've spent a lot of time at Disneyland, and it really is awesome. But what makes it awesome, like I said, is that you know you're leaving. And I think life is the same way. I think what makes life so awesome is when you realize all of this counts, all of this matters, because I'm not going to be here forever. You know, so you got to open your eyes, and you just got to like drink in every single moment and every experience, because you're not going to be here forever. And some people leave a lot sooner than they plan to, a lot sooner than they expect to. And can happen to anybody on any given day, you know. Today could be my last day on this earth, and I've really tried to make the most of all the time that I've had, and I have no regrets. So mortality makes that possible. You know, I don't know if I would feel that way if I knew I was going to live another 1,000 years. I think a part of me would be like, I'll think about making it count later. I got plenty of time. And you really would. 1,000 years is like an unimaginable length of time. But, you know, I count the time. Well, anybody can count the time they have left in decades. You know, it's really, it's right around the corner for all of us. We are, in the cosmic scheme of things, in the grand scope of the universe, we are like literally our whole life. The whole life of our species is going to be like the blink of an eye, in a relative sense. So yeah, man. Sex robots, I guess, is what I was getting at. Yeah. Mortality, existentialism, and sex robots. Now, here's a question. You going to build your own? You're going to buy one off the shelf? I don't mean build your own like on a workbench. I mean, you're going to build your own, like, you're going to design your own, and don't tell your partner. I won't tell him. Is it going to be somebody you dated in college? Is it going to be the one that got away? You know what I'm talking about. Slow down a little bit too early, but we are going downhill. And we do have, we do have a speed limit drop coming up before we get to the station. So a little bit early, but not the end of the world. And I think this station, we're going to get in there at about 51, 52 minutes. A little bit long for an episode, but not terribly. Not terribly. An hour, I think, is my cutoff. I don't want to do anything longer than an hour. Also, the way that I'm flipping these videos, they come out of my capture app as MP4, but they are a variable frame rate, and I have to convert them to fixed frame rate before I can render them. And I swear, man, like a 1 hour video will come out of my capture app at about 15 or 18 gig. And by the time it gets flipped to a stabilized frame rate, it is like literally 200 gig. I think I may be doing something wrong, but can't say for sure. But either way, man, that is a big video. So if I go, moment, still heading downhill a little bit here. So if I go over an hour, if I get into like 25 and 30 gig as my base file, then the file that flips when I convert it can be like 300 or 400 gig. And that's just an absurd amount of data. Data. You say data, you say data. Either way, I can't work with files that big. Plus, it would take 20 hours to render. So I try to cap it at an hour. And also, if you made it this far, I do appreciate you. But I know people got stuff to do. You can't spend an hour watching me drive a fake train and talk about mortality. Maybe you can. I don't know. If you've made it this far, wow. Thinking about this video and wondering if somebody tuned in like, oh, cool, train video. And then, yeah. What? So if you made it this far, kudos to you. And welcome to the channel. It's a little different here, the Portable Gamer. A little bit different. So cool. We'll call it 52 minutes. This is perfect. And I do like this sim. I do like driving me some trains. Right. Try to get the whole thing on the platform. Man, I gotta find a way to permanently turn off those markers. I keep turning them back off. Like you can see these color boxes we have on the track. I really don't like those. Definitely pulls me out of the immersion. We're gonna nail this one. And we're early, so we got time to get it right down here. Get it right about. Oh, what a way to end a video. Fantastic. Let me see if we got our tail on there. Beautiful. But that's not a coach. Looks like a mail car or something. There you go. Folks, spin around here. Thanks for stopping back to check out the Portable Gamer. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Train Sim World. This is the Northern Trans-Pennine DLC. We'll see you next time. Take care now.